Welcome back, Young and Pruitt listeners. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Carpy's Custom Screen Printing, the creators of custom screen printed shirts, hats, and apparel. Whether it's your design or something you have in mind, they can do it for you. Also, if you're into RC cars, they can make a wrap for you. They can make decals for you. Anything you need, they got it. See them at www.carpys.com, at Carpys_co on Twitter, and at Carpys on Instagram. This episode is also brought to you by youngandpruitt.com. Every single episode of this podcast is on that website. Layla's blog, the YPP fan forum. We got all kinds of goodies. If you're not listening to this episode on that website, be sure to head over to iTunes, Stitcher, and YouTube in an audio form. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave us a review, like us, share us, follow us. We are on Instagram at Young and Pruitt, on Twitter at Young and Pruitt. You already know. On this episode of the podcast, a little while back, we approached Mr. Spencer Boyd about coming onto the podcast. He said that, hey, it would be a very good idea for us to pack up all our stuff, head over to his place, and check out his driving simulator that he has. So our first on-location podcast, we're not in the studio, so it gets a little crazy. We start throwing mics around, but I hope you guys enjoy. Emmett Bryd, also previous guest of the show, he joins us. They talk about Gruntstyle. They talk about the SimGear simulator that he uses. It's a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoy it as much as we did. Here we go.
Drum solo, actually.
All right, so is everybody good?
Yes.
You good, Spencer?
Yeah.
All right. Well, here we are. We are on location at our guest's house. Spencer Boyd is joining us today.
Hey, how's it going?
He, you know what's funny? That we have the only current drivers that we have had on are both named Spencer.
That is a little strange.
So we've had Spencer Davis on before. He was our first driver. Our first current driver.
He hadn't even signed his KBM contract yet.
Yeah. When he was on here. And then if we can just continue down the line, what Spencer Gallagher would be next.
I think so.
So we just knock out all the Spencers, and then we'll just move on to like the Jimmys.
Yeah, there's a lot of those.
Or the Dales.
We need to get Jimmy Spencer on here.
Jimmy Spencer.
After he's had
What-
like 3 beers.
Whatever
4
happened
beers.
to him? He's kind of fell off the map. Where'd he go?
I don't know.
He went to jail for a little while, but
Man.
Yeah, was that what it was? He said
he
said
had some
something.
sort of incident. I don't think he had to serve any real time, but I think him and his son were involved in some sort of jurisprudence activity of some kind.
For those that recognize this voice, this is the voice of Emmett Bryd. He is also joining us today. I want to apologize to you on air about your previous podcast that you had with us about the sound
No
quality.
worries. No one wants to hear my voice anyway. So I'm just here today to help Spencer out. I've been working with Spencer for, been helping him out for about four years or so now, just as he got his career going, and just thrilled to see him in the Xfinity Series. And we're doing everything we can he's got a great sponsor in Gruntstyle, and we're doing everything that we can behind the scenes to help Spencer get better equipment, to get his performance a little bit better. And is there a cuckoo bird?
There's a cuckoo clock.
That is the world famous cuckoo clock at the Boyd household. So
I've only seen like 1 or 2 of those.
it's
awesome.
24/7. I forgot about that.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's yeah. So we
That's
got
character.
Yeah, we got a cuckoo clock on here. So give us kind of some background, Spencer. What got you into racing?
Yeah, I started racing when I was 4 years old on dirt bikes, and then moved into go-karts at 5. So my dad ran some go-karts back in the day, and just my whole family was race fans. So it was easy for me to become a race fan. That's kind of how it all started, watching racing, Dale Sr. on Sundays. And next thing you know, my parents put me in dirt bikes and go-karts, and I had a lot of fun. Transferred over to go-karts just because so many kids were getting hurt on dirt bikes. I still love it. I'm the kid wearing a flat bill. I love supercross racing. Love going and watching that. Anaheim, it's crazy. And then I just pursued my racing dream and followed NASCAR, and that's what I always wanted to do.
Was it a dirt or asphalt go-kart?
Asphalt. Yeah,
Asphalt
so
go-kart?
I grew up on asphalt road courses, and I actually didn't run an oval until I was 13 years old.
Oh, wow. So road course go-karts. Those are fun. So was it like the little shifter carts that where you like lay down in, or?
Yeah, so it was a mixture of everything, like 5 horsepower Briggs motors to Tag 60s to shifter 125s. I mean, throughout my age of, 6 to 12, I ran so many different go-karts, a lot of different manufacturers. Being from St. Louis, the first karting manufacturer I got hooked up with was Margay Karting, Keith Freber, based out of St. Louis. So it was a good partnership, and probably going to run a go-kart for them here at, I think, Indianapolis later this year.
Nice. Yeah, I'm from Vincennes.
Okay.
So I'm not that far away from there. That's
Midwest Invasion.
Yeah, about 2 hours away.
Have you ever driven one of those go-karts, one of those shifter carts?
No, I have not.
They're insane. I had a chance to drive one at Atlanta Motor Speedway one time, and wow, it's quite an experience. It's hard to imagine going that fast, about a quarter inch off the ground.
Yeah, wicked fast. My first ever NASCAR track experience would be a Tag 60 go-kart at Gateway. So
Nice.
that's hometown St. Louis, So that was my first ever experience on a NASCAR track, and we were doing 110 mile an hour at 11 years old there.
Now,
so.
did they have the little road course that cut through there, or did you run the actual oval?
Yeah, that's right. I ran. You went into turn 1, went into the infield, and then you ran the real track through turns 3 and 4.
And then down the front stretch?
That's right. Yeah.
Nice. That'd have been fun.
you're
Front
rolling.
stretch. Rolling. Yeah, that concrete wall looks huge. 11 years old. But you just don't know any better at that time, so you're just rolling. Now looking back, my dad's like, I can't believe I let you do that. I'm like, yeah, but we won both days. Those trophies are pretty tall. It's pretty cool.
It's always like that. When you get in your first car when you're like 16 and you're seeing how fast it'll go, like it doesn't really seem like that until you do that now, like 16 years later, you're like, I'm going a little too fast. Probably shouldn't be doing this on public road.
No, that's for sure. We all listen. I remember when I got my driver's license at 16, I had my first drag race about an hour later, and I won. Certainly, my parents didn't know about that.
Well, as long as you won.
It's
It's all that matters.
If you come home and you're like, look, I lost my license. Well, did you win? And it eases the pain, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
Was that through the mountains of Rocky Top?
It was actually on John Sevier Highway, which is located in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I was racing a guy that was in my class at Doyle High School, and everybody expected him to win. He had a GTO, and my parents had a 4-door Oldsmobile Cutlass, but my dad had blown the motor in it somehow, and they put a 350 in there with a 4-barrel carburetor, and that thing would absolutely fly.
Sleeper.
It was a sleeper car. Certainly it was.
Awesome.
Great experience, though.
So you've kind of, don't take this the wrong way, but you're kind of taking the long way into racing. You've worked with a couple teams here. I read on your Wikipedia page that you've slowly keep working your way through, climbing up the ladder. How's that experience been for you so far?
Well, it's definitely been a journey. I wouldn't trade it for the world. It's definitely been a long road. 22 years old, to be running full time. To most fans and people out there, family members, they think it's cool, and they think you're pretty young. But in the racing world, 22 is a little older. Mm-hmm. A lot of these kids are racing Xfinity at 18, 19 years old. So I'm a couple of years later, but it's been fun. I've had 2 part-time seasons. My first season was 2016. I ran 5 races between trucks and Xfinity, and realized, hey, I'm having a lot of fun. This is something I really want to pursue. I can see myself doing this full-time. And then started marketing myself to different companies to try and figure out how I could pay for this.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. This sport's so expensive. You have to go out there and find partners. And, through the years, I've met Emmett and a lot of great other guys that have helped me get here. And now it's just, I got my shot to run full time, and how do I make the most of it? So it's a really good home over there at SS Greenlight Racing. Things are going smooth. Obviously as a rookie, you have your highs and lows. There's tracks that you catch on to really quick, and there's tracks that are difficult. So right now I'm just going through that. The West Coast swing was all brand new racetracks, Vegas, Phoenix, California. The track that I wasn't looking forward to was California. I'm like, man, I got to run the top. I really don't like that. In our situation, we don't want to tear cars up, so just kissing the right side is just as bad as knocking the right side off. You know, at the end of the day, it costs the same to fix it, really. So with that being said, we ended up going out there and having our best qualifying effort of the year. So caught on to California a lot quicker than I thought I would, which gives me a lot of confidence going into tracks like, you know, Pocono and Michigan, some other tracks I haven't been to.
I got to take a pause here and give Spencer and his dad, Paul Boyd, a lot of credit. It is so difficult to find the funding to run these top series in NASCAR, whether it be truck, Xfinity, certainly Cup. It takes a ton of money to do it. These guys have been relentless in pursuing sponsors and partners to help them achieve their dream. And I think with the sponsor he has now with Gruntstyle, it's an excellent fit. And Spencer certainly does a great job for him. So the key is now is to move this program, continue to get it better and better, you know, better equipment, better people surrounding Spencer, so that he can get to the place where he needs to be running as well as he can. And that's one of the things that I've tried to focus on to help them. But I got to give those guys a lot of credit. His dad, Paul, and Spencer have worked very, very hard to get the money that they need to compete at this level.
Yeah, and we see that even at the highest level. You know, Lowe's is leaving Jimmy Johnson. You know, Dale was even having problems trying to get sponsorship his last couple of years. You know, so it's having the funds to be able to do that, and that's really the struggle. That's the Monday through Friday, you know, Monday through Saturday is trying to get the funds.
It's a 7-day-a-week, 24-hour-a-day job these days, and it's not going to get any easier. But I think Spencer is truly blessed with Gruntstyle, and I think he's an excellent fit with them. And I think it works very, very well for their demographics and their marketing platform, NASCAR.
So that was a company founded by a former drill sergeant?
Yeah, Daniel. He started Gruntstyle a few years ago. And it's just taken off. You know, social media has helped them a lot. You know, they're all over Facebook, over 2.5 million likes. And it's crazy, kind of a quick story about Daniel. He started the company and was doing screen printing and doing his own designs out of his house and selling out of his car. And his wife and himself went to a convention, not sure what state it was in, but they were selling T-shirts. And they're like, look, if we hit this particular amount of money, and I want to say it was like around $1,200 in sales, if we can sell $1,200, we'll keep going. If we don't hit that objective, we're going to quit. And they made it by just like $30. And now last year they were a $100 million company. So
wow.
It just goes to show you, you know, you got to keep chasing that dream. And, you know, when I hear that, I'm like, wow, you know, my parents have sacrificed a lot for me to make it in racing, and you know, we've kept chasing my dream, and fortunately it's come true, and I want to, you know, keep progressing into, you know, the Cup level and better rides throughout the years. But it just goes to show you that if you work hard enough, you know, things, those dreams can come true.
And talk a little bit about Gruntstyle, how they're involved with the veterans and give back in terms of that. You and I talked about that a little bit the other day.
Yeah, absolutely. So Gruntstyle is based out of Chicago, and they have over 350 employees. And the biggest thing that Daniel's kind of kept close to his heart forever is he wants to keep 50% of the employees veterans.
Nice.
So, you know, it's tough to fill every position, you know, with veterans. You know, there's different things. Not everybody wants to screen print. Not everybody wants to be in marketing and stuff like that. But they've been able to, over the past, I believe, 9 years, keep it at 50%. And they're growing so much, they're actually moving their headquarters to San Antonio, Texas, and they're hiring quite a few people out there, and they're keeping that same thought process. And that really gives back to a lot of veterans, you know, getting them a job when they come back from active duty and fitting in. You know, I hear that a lot. I'm not a veteran myself, so I talk to all these guys and gals at Gruntstyle, and they talk about how most companies and most jobs, they really don't feel like themselves. You know, it's a lot different. It's tough to work for a company and feel like it's a team and have that same camaraderie that you have, you know, overseas. And I'm not a veteran, so I'm not sure exactly how that feels, but I hear so many great stories about working at Gruntstyle, which is awesome. So they're a great company. You know, they're expanding with clothes that are actually made here in America. So a lot of their products were made in America. Now they have a complete line on gruntstyle.com that is 100% made in America.
It's truly admirable, both what they do with the veterans and the fact that it is made in the USA. That's very important in this day and age.
Yeah, it's quite impressive, and everybody there, it's awesome. It's when you go there and tour their facility, they have a beer 30. So at 4:30 every day, everyone goes down to the cafeteria, kind of hangs out, chats about what they did that day and how sales were and what they could do to be better, and then they sit around the table and have a nice cold one. So that's a unique business,
Sounds
right?
like a very good company to work for.
So they're kind of all in on NASCAR. Like they were partnered with RPM at one point, I think in 2017, and then I hear them on MRN all the time. Hear ads there, and then of course they're all over your number 76 Chevrolet, which is a nice tie-in to what their brand's about. So it's very cool to see them recognize the demographic and invest in it, because they are absolutely connecting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's tough nowadays in NASCAR to find partners and people that want to be involved on a weekly basis. Finding a sponsor for a race here because they, make a soap product in Phoenix, Arizona, and they want to be on a car in Phoenix, Arizona. Okay, it makes sense. That's cool. They want to have the activation and have friends and family come out. But to have a company that buys in for all 33 races, like I have with Gruntstyle, my first full-time Xfinity season, all 33 races, primary sponsors Gruntstyle. So that's really awesome. I started with them at Miami in 2016 in the truck race. That was our first time partnering together. And then they were my primary sponsor for all 10 of my races last year. So it's been a great partnership to see them buy into NASCAR with all the MRN advertisements, stuff like that, and then partnering with RPM at one point. It shows that they're buying into NASCAR, they recognize the demographic, and they love the fans. They're doing Spencer Boyd Edition T-shirts, hats coming out, stuff like that. So that's pretty special to me. 5 years ago, I would say I probably didn't see that coming. I dreamed of being in NASCAR, but I didn't realize that I could find one large company that would, become family.
Yeah, and I've seen that they got their hands in just like a lot of things. They got the Gruntstyle Motorsports, they got the Gruntstyle Hunting, I've seen, and there's like a couple other Gruntstyle forms that they're working their way into also.
Music artists.
Yeah.
Events.
Yeah. Like I said, they have beer 30, so they know how to throw.
They know how to do this.
They know how to throw a good party and have a great time, and I think that's what's so great. Everyone from screen printing to Dan owning the company, they're so approachable. Mm-hmm. They have these events called Grunt Fest, and they have big headliners come out. This coming weekend at Texas and San Antonio, they have Kane Brown, huge, well-known country artist right now, and he's coming out to sing, and everyone from the top to the bottom at Gruntstyle will be at this event. So that's pretty cool. You're going to be able to go up there and meet everybody. They sell tickets to where you can party with Dan. I'll be there after the Xfinity race, so you can meet me, sign autographs. And it's just really cool that someone who's built such a large company is willing to just go out there and shake hands and drink a cold beer with anybody. So they've definitely stayed true to themselves.
And that probably really motivates you to go out there and perform, not only for yourself, but for a good company like that who's backing veterans, so you're out there, trying to put on a good show, not just for yourself, but also for them, have a good outing for them.
Yeah. I do the best I can every weekend, try and learn from every racetrack and every circumstance, good or bad, just do the best we can as a team, win or lose. We just keep progressing forward. And that's the thing, all the guys at Gruntstyle are behind me. They text me before and after all the races. And, I've had a lot of partners through the years, some long-term, some shorter. And they send you a text. That's cool. It's great. But the guys at Gruntstyle, they're constantly in contact with me, and it's a great partnership. And you feel like your family. They come out to the races and get to hang out, go to dinner afterwards. And it's just a great time. I always thought that when you get a corporate sponsor, you're going to have to be on your best behavior all the time. It's going to be really stressful, and these guys are totally different. It's great. You get to hang out, be yourself. They want you to be yourself, and the great thing is they're the same when they're at work and outside playing, and that makes it all more fun, a little easier, Yeah,
I've always found it more beneficial just to be yourself 100% of the time. Just deliver when you have to deliver, but anytime you're having those candid conversations or just, simple text message stuff, those honest, raw moments you get, that's how you build that long-term relationship, that nice trust base where your sponsor can come to you and you can go to them, and it just really becomes a two-way street.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's good for the partnership, and long term wise, it's good to be on terms like that.
It's an easier way to live your life. You don't have to worry about what you're supposed to be. You just have to be yourself.
Yeah.
It makes it much easier.
Yeah, it's great. On social media, I live on Twitter, and obviously I do them all, Facebook and Instagram. But with Twitter, it's so quick, man. You can just respond instantly, and my fan base has grown drastically on there, and so many of those people are veterans and just true patriots. So I have a lot of good conversations. I post a lot, interact with fans, and Gruntstyle loves that. They're the same way. On Facebook, on their posts, they interact back and forth with their customers, and it's a good deal. People love that, and we love going out there and meeting fans at all the different racetracks.
Yeah, and the fans, they can really respond to that sincerity that you have. Being yourself, being approachable, having the conversations with them like that, they really feed off of that. They could really, relate to you.
Yeah. No.
So let's talk a little bit about why we're on the road. You guys have brought the Young and Pruitt podcast on the road. First time on the road?
Yes, this is our first on location podcast that we've done. So I threw everything in the truck and hobbled my way over here.
Before we get deep into that, I'm just going to let you know that if you ever thought you could drive a race car without have ever actually driven a race car, you cannot drive a race car. And I have been playing with the Spencer's simulator setup, and I quickly found out that my hopes and dreams are dashed. But I will happily watch him from
Don't
the
be so
pits.
tough on yourself, David. Everybody has rough days, but as I drove it, and I've already flipped the car once, so it's a pretty spectacular accident. But no, we're here because on the road, I talked these guys into coming over to Spencer's house because he's just invested in a brand new simulator system to help him grow more comfortable with the racetracks that he's never seen before, and then also just to be able to practice as a whole. And it's quite impressive setup. Spencer, I'll let you talk a little bit about. Describe this system to us, if you would.
Yeah, so I purchased a simulator through a company called SimGear. They're also located in Chicago, kind of ironic there, but it's pretty big. It takes up the whole dining room, you know, 3 42-inch monitors, and it's full motion. So the thing that you get out of full motion is you can feel the looseness and tightness of the race car. You have force feedback wheel and stuff, and the racing simulator is ran through iRacing, and it's in a lot of households. iRacing can be found from just your laptop all the way up to a really high dollar setup. So I've been fortunate enough to partner with SimGear and get a simulator to practice on. So over the winter, I did a lot of laps. Coming into my first full-time season in Xfinity with so many new racetracks, I thought it would be really beneficial to see these tracks, even if it's online, just to get some visual points and get a feel for how the car reacts. Is the car really going to be tight on entry, or are you going to fight, tight off where the wall comes up so quickly? And I feel like, going to tracks like Phoenix and California for the first time, I was a lot more up to speed a lot quicker by having the SimGear simulator. And it's a good talking point. I didn't know I had so many friends. People come over all the time, and that's one of those things, right?
It's like having a trailer.
Yeah,
Everybody wants to be your friend.
Yeah, you're gonna have to start charging admission over here. It
has been talked about.
As a guy who played tons of racing video games, I mean, I was involved in some of the very first NASCAR video games, the ones that came out on PC. The first NASCAR licensed game, I actually worked on it along with Jeff Gordon and Bobby Labonte and a couple other guys. And so I've seen the whole growth of that technology over a period of 22, 23 years now. And this is really, really impressive right here. The only thing that could take this to the next level, and I'm sure it's going to happen soon, would be the VR aspect. If once they get it to where you could actually do this in VR, then you'll never be able to get David out of the seat at all. He's just going to be stuck.
Yeah, because then you could actually be sitting in a car and just have just the goggles on, the VR goggles. You could actually be in a car.
Yeah. I've got the VR for the PlayStation 4, and there are several racing games there that are really, really good. It's Gran Turismo actually has it's just come out with a part of it is in VR, and it's all immersive. It's something else. But this system right here is much more powerful. Like you say, Spencer, it's got the force feedback. It's got you've got the 3 monitors, 42 inches. You get quite the you get a real feel for what it's like to try to drive one of these race cars. And there again, you can play with the setup. You can do all sorts of things. Describe all the different formats that are on there.
Yeah, there's obviously, myself running an Xfinity, big thing is, go out there and test at all these NASCAR tracks with an Xfinity car. But, there's so many options. You have IndyCar, you have Global Rallycross, you have everything, all the way to, legend cars. And you have different tracks all across America. I couldn't even name them all. You have tracks like Concord, Charlotte Motor Speedway, all the way to, what is that, Nürburgring? It's huge.
Yeah,
they have every layout out there. So what's cool is you can race with anyone around the world, on iRacing.com, and you can also just do test. So I like to do a lot of testing. Go out there by yourself. They'll lay down your quickest lap with a ghost car, so you can constantly just sit there and try and beat the lap you ran, before. And then, like Emmett said, you can go and change the setup all the way from, bump stiffness and the shocks to, truck arm points. There's just so many different things that you can change, and it really does affect the car fairly realistic.
Does that help you understand what the crew chief's trying to do on the weekends by making your own changes on these cars?
Yeah, it definitely helps. Sometimes at the track you hear different changes, and you're like, man, what is that? What does that really do? Obviously I'm giving feedback, and the objective is to change the car and make it to where I can run faster. But when I come home and I can do those same adjustments and go, okay, yeah, I see why that helped. And you can change it, whether it's a half a round to 3 rounds, and just so you have an idea of, what the crew chief's changing and what affects the car. And, even on Saturday when you're making adjustments, you can kind of say, well, hey, what about this that I changed on iRacing and felt similar? And it sounds dumb, but you talk to a lot of other drivers and they're doing the same thing. There's so many different simulators out there. I have the SimGear simulator, but there's a lot of options. So different drivers have these at their house, and it's taken a few years. I've dreamt of having one, and finally I do. And like I said, it's a good talking point. So I have a lot of other drivers, like Josh Williams, Matt Mills come over, and we just, for hours, run lap after lap to get better. And then usually someone leaves frustrated. And sometimes I just leave to go to my room because I'm the one frustrated.
Emmett had to peel me out of the seat so we could record this thing.
Absolutely.
Which, one of my favorite things about Emmett is he does know that I get pretty addicted to these racing games once I get set into them. And he always has like the most poetic way of like getting me out of the seat. Like, hey, the game's starting in about 5 minutes. You want to come over here and help me cook real quick? Like,
just one more lap, Dad. Just one more lap.
So let's talk about Texas. You had mentioned that this particular version doesn't have the updated Texas track on it, but have you been running Texas, and does it still help you leading into this weekend?
Yeah, so, they did the repave at Texas and really changed turns 1 and 2, and there's just a lot of grip in 3 and 4 now. I mean, you can run wide open for quite a long time. I ran at Texas last year, and I didn't have the simulator, so I was going in there blind, and we had a solid run. Like usual, it's a new track, so throughout practice you're just learning a lot. And then this year I've been on a simulator. Turns 3 and 4 are really similar, but 1 and 2 on the simulator are the old turns 1 and 2. So the banking's changed a little bit, and the drop off into the corner is different. So you kind of just got to work your way through turns 1 and 2 and focus on 3 and 4. And the tri-oval was pretty tricky at Texas. Right as you get out of the tri-oval, boom, you're in turn 1. And my spotter Hayden and I were talking about that today. It's a big thing when you go through there too wide. You have the corner coming up really quick. So if you're the guy on the bottom, your car really has to turn, and that's something you fight at Texas. The exit of turn 2 comes up so quick.
While Atlanta and Charlotte and Texas all look very similar with a quad oval, Texas is by far the most different of those three, and a lot of it has to do with the transition as you're coming off of into the banking and off of the banking. The transition is a little bit more abrupt there than it is some other places.
For sure, yeah. Through at Texas, it's so flat, and then you drive off into turn 1, and all of a sudden it just picks you up, throws you back in the seat. Texas is one of the most fun tracks, really. You feel the G's there, and for myself, that'll help me get ready for Bristol the next week. So that's one of those things. It's a good feeling, In racing, you're always pushing the edge, and you like being on the edge as a race car driver. So I know we're going to be on the edge at Texas, and then Bristol coming up the following week.
And you've never even laid eyes on Bristol, is that correct?
No, I haven't. I've never even driven by it. So right, fastest half mile, something like that.
just driving a street car on Bristol is a different experience. You actually end up looking out the side window to see where you're going. It's just such a tight bowl. It's a really different place. Working with Brian Scott, he used to tell me that, you run 500 laps there, and you get to a point in the race where you really don't know if you're going into turn 1 or into turn 3. It's that symmetrical.
It's that quick too.
Yeah, it's that quick. 17 seconds, or 16 something seconds a lap these days. It's it's an amazing place. So you'll have a lot of fun there. So I would definitely get on that simulator and run as many laps as I could next week, because you'll need it going into that place. It's something else. You've had a little bit of you've brought some new help into your team. You want to talk a little bit about that, the personnel changes, bringing Rick in to help you out a little bit?
Yeah. So, over at SS Greenlight, we've had a lot of the same, people working on the cars for quite a few years. So Ray Black drove the 07 car for SS Greenlight before I did, and a lot of his people were still there when I got there. And I ran with SS Greenlight part-time last year, and was fortunate enough to get hooked up with my crew chief, Jason Miller, and we worked really hard together, and we've been working together for like 10 or 11 races total now. And then we were able to bring in Rick Wren. So excited about that. Rick has such a successful pass, from KHI to KBM. Those are big teams. So I feel like he's going to be able to help our team out a lot. Jason's still going to be my crew chief, but Rick's going to come in and kind of help on the competition side with, different setup ideas and things like that. I feel like that's going to help us a lot. Communication's key. So as a young driver, trying to get what you feel in the race car to the crew chief can sometimes be difficult, and when you have someone that can kind of be the mediator and give you advice of what you're talking about or what you feel from such a successful angle. He's worked with, Rick's worked with Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, Joey Coulter. There's so many different driving styles that he's worked with. I feel like it's going to help me out a lot.
He was a former driver himself when he was younger, and Rick has been a crew chief in the Cup Series. He's been a crew chief in the Xfinity Series. Ironically enough, he was a crew chief for your car owner, Bobby Dotter, back in the day.
That's right. It's pretty cool. So Bob's excited about that. Bobby Dotter and I are really close friends. It makes me racing for him pretty special. It's really cool that he gave me an opportunity last year to run when the car didn't have a driver. So it worked out, turned into a full-time deal for myself, and, kind of like a reunion with Rick and Bob, and seeing them at the shop. They're smiling, talking about old stories, and I'm like, all right, we getting the car ready for Texas. I'm hearing about all these good times, but they're working hard. Rick has some different ideas, and I'm really excited to get to the racetrack. With NASCAR's testing policy, I couldn't show up 3 days early and go lay down some laps. So our first laps together are going to be on Friday, and nobody can see me right now, but I'm jumping out of my seat. I'm pretty excited.
Yeah. And that's one of the big things that where these simulators became popular was the restriction on the testing.
That's right.
Because that's, the only time that you can really, actually get on the track and get some laps and get the familiarity with the places that you're going. Especially for someone like you who hasn't been to a lot of places. So you can actually sit here. Have you ever done like a full 300 miles, 400 miles in one setting?
Well, usually I wreck by then on the simulator. So it's tough to on the simulator. You're just pushing the edge lap after lap, trying to get better and learn about the racetrack. To where
it doesn't cost anything to repair the car.
Bingo.
Exactly.
Bingo.
That is the greatest thing. It's the cheapest backup car ever, and that kind of is why I purchased the simulator. I knew that. In our situation, you don't want to go tear up race cars. So if you can get your feet wet and kind of knock off the rust at all these new places with a cheap reset button, that'd be great. But yeah, I've been on here 3, 4, 5 hours, at one time. And it's crazy. It's realistic. You move around. If you wreck enough, sometimes it feels like you need a helmet on because the simulator throws you around. But that's what's great. You can hit the reset button and make adjustments and find out what the edge is and that sort of thing. And, like you mentioned with the testing restriction, you saw so many young drivers that were test drivers for Cup teams. All of a sudden, their job's kind of gone, So you have to get your experience somewhere.
When I started in Cup racing in 1988, there were, as far as I know, and I don't think there were no restrictions on testing. So if someone wanted to rent Rockingham for 5 straight days, they could do that. And looking back on that, with as many good road course guys, it's amazing that some guy didn't just like rent either Riverside or Watkins Glen or one of those tracks that we ran on, and just test a bunch and then go run that race. They would have had a huge advantage when you think about it. But that didn't happen because obviously it cost a lot of money just to rent racetracks and tires and stuff. But that's where some guys, that's why the rules were changed. I mean, some guys, once these teams became bigger and bigger teams with more and more money and multi-car teams, they would go places and just test, and it was such a huge advantage that NASCAR had to make a change.
Yeah, they would actually have just a test team.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Guys that did not do anything else but just worked on the test cars.
Test crew chief, test driver.
Yeah.
I mean, everything, and it became such a huge advantage that they did have to step in. So,
I mean, you see a lot of big names. If you look up the history of Landon Gassel, I mean, he was a Hendrick test driver. So, that opportunity is gone. To go out there and get real seat time in cars that are, what you hope to drive. For myself, coming from late models and skipping ARCA and K&N, I hopped in a truck at Martinsville back in April of 2016, so just over 2 years ago. And people are like, hey, you excited for the race? And I'm like, man, I'm excited to get in a truck. I've never been to Martinsville, never seen a race at Martinsville, never driven a truck. And boom, we had a 55-minute, practice session. So you're learning about the racetrack, you're learning about NASCAR's rules, and then you're learning about a truck that you've never even sat in. So there's so many obstacles to overcome that people on the outside really don't recognize. And they think, he's been testing a truck for a month. No, you just show up and drive, and you hope that everything you've done prepares you for that. Whereas back in the day, when you could be a test driver, you could show up for your first ever race and have, thousands of laps at that place where I was just as green as could be.
Yeah, but you did drive yourself into the top 10 in that race.
Yeah, we wrecked running 5th. So that was exciting,
And that wasn't just like, that was probably 2/3 of the way through the race. He had worked his way in through there, did a tremendous job. I was actually really impressed with his performance that day.
Yeah, to go back to the restrictions on the testing, there's teams that will go in January of the year, and they'll get all their pit crews together, and they'll get their pit boxes, and they'll go down to Charlotte Motor Speedway, and they'll do like a dry run for all their pit boxes and making sure everyone knows how to set everything up and tear everything down, everything's good. Well, they'll bring over their pit practice cars, the cars that they use to practice with. The testing is so strict that those cars, the pit practice cars, the cars that they might even have like a V6 motor in them, or people even have like an electric motor inside of them, they're not even allowed to go out on the main track at Charlotte. They're only allowed to go around the Legends circle there in the infield. So it's like they keep it tight.
Yeah.
When it comes to that stuff.
Yeah, I feel like NASCAR does their best to make it a equal playing field. It's so tough to, as you can see, it's so tough to win these cup races. It's crazy. If you get a little bit of an edge, you can be on top for, a quarter of the season, if not more. You saw, Martin Truex.
Talk to Kevin Harvick.
Yeah.
He's dominating that right now.
Yeah, Stuart Haas is killing it right now.
Yeah, what did Corey LaJoie said? They asked him what it's like to lead a lap or to run up front in a cup race, and he said it's like paddling up Niagara Falls in a canoe with a broken paddle. That's how difficult it is to win one of these races and to lead laps and to just be good, and just be decent every weekend. It's one of the hardest things, and I'm not even a driver, and I understand how hard it is because I've never been in victory lane in the NASCAR series.
It's not just hard for the driver; it's hard for the whole organization, and that's why taking a look at what they've done with the 78 car to come from basically a team that wasn't one of the more established teams, to build that team, to get the win that they did in Darlington with Regan Smith, and then to come in with Martin and win a championship. That is just quite an accomplishment. And you just don't. It's just so hard to establish a beachhead, particularly in Cup these days. It's a little bit easier in trucks. not quite as easy in Xfinity, but still maybe if you had the right amount of money, maybe you could come in and do it. But in Cup, no matter how much money you have, it is still very, very difficult to do.
While putting yourself behind the 8 ball, being 2,000 miles away from where the best people and the best equipment is.
Yeah, and you know, it's hard to keep good employees, and to get them all out there to Denver is just an amazing accomplishment.
Because that's the one thing that everyone that we've asked keeps going back to. It's the people that you have on your team. It's the people that you've assembled. That's your core group. That is the most important thing, is having the good people with the good knowledge and the good experience to be able to apply it to the race car and to give him what he needs to be good.
Got to give a shout out to your car owner, Bobby Daughter. I mean, I've seen him. I saw Bobby run first time I ever went to Daytona. I saw Bobby run there in the ARCA series, and then to follow his career through. And he had a great sponsorship with DeWalt in the day. And Bobby was very, very competitive. His whole family, Bob Daughter Sr., a legend in motorsports. So to see Bob still involved it is great. And he's just one of the truly good people in the sport.
I think he actually used to race when they raced at Soldier Field. I think when they ran the late models or something up there.
His dad may have.
His dad? Okay.
Yeah. I'd have to look that up. I don't know if Bob ever ran that. They used to run at Soldier Field back in the day, and they used to. The great story I heard about that was what they used to do is it was like more like pro wrestling, back then. So they would have a wreck, and the cars are still going around under caution. They'd bring the ambulance out, and they'd put a driver on a stretcher and load him in the ambulance, and then they would accidentally restart the race with the ambulance still out there, and they would take a dummy on the stretcher and open up the back door of the ambulance and roll out the stretcher while the cars were racing. So,
oh wow,
great entertainment.
That's great. Yeah, I've heard stories about Soldier Field and being from the Midwest. How they would try and have different guys win all the time. Yeah. So they would do things to make sure the same guy wasn't winning every race, and that's pretty unique. That's more that WWE style. I like the just raw racing side of things, but that is pretty cool. Bob comes from a long line of race car drivers, and Bob's dad was a multi-time ARCA champion.
Yes.
So that's pretty successful, and especially back there and that day, man, those cars were so dangerous back then. To just wheel it at 200 mile an hour or so at Daytona is unbelievable.
The Bobby Daughter from that, Rick Wren is from close to the Chicago area, so your sponsor's from there, and then a lot of ARCA guys came from the Chicago area and now have moved here. The Venturinis, another group that have had a lot of success.
Speaking of WWE style racing, have you ever been to Bowman Gray Stadium?
I knew you were going to say that.
So I haven't ran there. Kind of funny story. I was racing legend cars for this guy named Ryan Farbo, who was actually a suspension guy on the 48 for a couple championships, and he was a legend car guy. So he started his own legend car team, and I was actually his first driver, which was pretty cool. We had some success there, and he's like, "You want to run Bowman Gray?" And I'm like, "Look, man, I don't really have the money to fix my car, and Bowman Gray is so crazy." And he's like, "All right, man, we're taking the seat out, and I'm gonna put my seat in, and I'm gonna run, and you can have spotters there." So I'm like, "All right, this is cool." He's like, "So I'm gonna drive your car, but if I wreck it, I'll fix it, and you spot crew chief for me. We'll swap roles." All right, sounds good, So we go out there to Bowman Gray, and it's wreck after wreck, and we're probably like 7th or 8th quick, and I'm like, "Ryan, you're doing pretty good, man. You might win this race here. We're restarting second. It's gonna be good." Gets in the lead, and on the last lap, coming out of turn 2, just I don't know what he does, just whiskey throttles that thing and spins out, and he's crazy anyway. This guy is nuts, man. He's wide open all the time. They started 30, so there are probably like 15 or 16 cars left. He just sits there and does donuts while all the cars are going by. I mean, just never lets off the gas. Just doo-doo-doo. Needless to say, we were the last car running, but and the car didn't get too tore up, so that was exciting, just a fender. But I was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Well, if I'm not going to win the race, I'm going to be well noticed, and I'm going to get famous out of this deal. And he gets out of the car, and I mean, there's a lot of women up there at that racetrack. So he had a lot of fans, a lot of people coming down in the pits after the race, and I was like, all right, well, now I know. You know, if you can't win the race, do something spectacular. And I think one of those guys that I heard that from a long time ago was Michael Waltrip. He's like, if I'm not having a good day, I'm going to make sure my sponsors are on TV one way or another. So we know Michael's had some spectacular crashes.
He had one. He had one at Bristol. That was one of the most incredible crashes I've ever seen. That car was totally demolished and in totally separate pieces. You know, they had to lift that thing up, and he was underneath it.
Yeah.
They had a really good Napa commercial back when he was in the Napa car. That whole string of commercials with him was great. I mean, he's a very charismatic guy. But they had the one where the guy was having him sign the die-cast cars. And he has him sign this one. And it was like, this is the one where you won at this track. And he signs it. And he's like, and this is the one where you won at this track. And then he dumps out a whole bunch of parts. He's like, and this is your Bristol car. And he's like, just sign one of the bigger pieces. Because he actually hit the gate that's no longer there, right?
Yeah, it was a crossover gate coming off of turn 2.
Yeah,
I was there that day. It was matter of fact, the only footage of that particular crash was shot by a gentleman by the name of Jim Wogan, who was the sports anchor for WATE TV, the ABC affiliate in Knoxville, Tennessee, and he was the only one that he was actually shooting his own footage that day, and he was the only one that got that crash during practice. And I know I actually worked for that same ABC affiliate previously, and I knew Jim, and but I had actually transitioned into racing at that point in time, and I was working with one of the teams, but it was something to behold. He was very fortunate to live through it. And then Mike Harmon had the exact same.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say next.
It was just the exact same.
But Harmon got hit by another car that didn't see it too.
Yeah.
Like he hit the gate and spun around, and then a car coming off of 2 drilled him again. And I remember that was in 2000.
Yeah, Michael's seat was no longer even bolted into the car. I mean, it was totally separate from the chassis.
Turned his car into confetti.
It did. It truly did. It was. I mean, and the fact that he survived it, basically survived it with no significant injury whatsoever, was able to walk away from it.
Harmon actually has his car. Yeah. No, I'm excited about Bristol, and I'm pretty sure Harmon still has his car out on the back of his shop from that particular wreck. So that's crazy, you know. And being a rookie, I try and talk to so many different drivers, you know. Justin Allgaier and I talk quite a bit at the racetrack, so I can kind of get more familiar, and he's really successful in the Xfinity cars. And, you know, then you talk to guys like Jeff Green and Mike Harmon, who are like, look, man, we understand, you know, you're in lesser equipment and you're doing the best you can, but this is kind of the flow of the race, and this is what you need to pay attention to, you know. The caution normally comes out within the first 10 laps, so just be on your toes. And those are things that have been, you know, really important and good information. So, you know, you can learn from some of the guys that are on top right now and some of the guys that are, you know, legends.
You know, working with Kyle Busch, that was one of his biggest pet peeves. He understands clearly that some guys don't have the equipment that he was fortunate enough to have. And when he would run the Truck Series races, there were a couple of drivers there in the Truck Series that it was just very difficult for him. And what he told me one time was, I don't care if they pick high or low. I just want them to pick that way every single time, so I know what I'm dealing with when I'm approaching them. And one of the drivers that he was talking about, I knew pretty well, and I finally went up to him and I said, look, and because Kyle had shown his frustration, and the guy knew it. And I said, it's this simple. If you're going to have him go around you on the high side, just do it that way every single time and point him, and then you won't have these issues. Because I've talked to several drivers at Bristol, and it's lap traffic is a huge problem there because the speed differential. But it seems to be more so in the Xfinity series than in the Cup, because most of the guys in Cup have all got pretty good equipment. But there's still some guys in Xfinity that are somewhat off the pace, and it shows at a place like Bristol. So
I was going to say, didn't he get wrecked leading at Bristol? Kyle Busch?
Oh yeah, he did. That was
by a lap
Xfinity
car.
series. Yeah.
who will remain nameless.
Yeah, it was like just a I think it was just a few laps from the finish, if I'm not mistaken.
So yeah,
Really?
Yeah,
We're gonna have to go off air so I can hear this because I don't recall this one.
It's
But-
probably about 6-7 years ago, maybe.
yeah.
Well, I should know. I was a huge Kyle fan. I still am. Racing against him. What's funny is my first ever truck race at Martinsville. He was walking in front of me by the concession stand. I whipped out my phone. And I grabbed a photo, sent it to my dad, and it was just him walking in front of me in his race suit. And I'm like, "Can you believe it? Can you believe? 3 weeks ago I was running a late model at Hickory Motor Speedway, and I'm about to go race with Kyle Busch. It's moments like that are really exciting."
Well, here in a few minutes, you want to go ahead and take a break and set up the simulator and
We sure can.
have him talk us through the simulator portion. And,
We sure can.
And we can close out maybe with that. You can show us a few tracks and talk about what you're learning and what you're looking for and how that simulator works.
Yeah,
Yeah, we can
absolutely.
do that for sure.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, we will be right back. All right. So, we're doing this kind of like reporting style. I'm holding the mic. Let's see. Corbeau. Is that Corbeau seat in this thing? Okay. No, this is the SimGear. What model is this? Is there a model, or they're all just the same thing?
It's the top of the line of the three they make.
Top of the line of the three they make.
Yeah.
Okay. And let's see. We got a Ferrari. Or no, Porsche. That's Porsche. Sorry.
Porsche, yeah. So it's so what we have is the Porsche wheel on the Fanatec hub and assembly for force feedback, and it's 13.5 inches wide. So it's really similar to what I have in the real race car.
Okay. Now we are going to run the Xfinity car, and we're going to be at what one are you going to run? Are you going to run Texas or what?
Yeah, we'll go to Texas here.
Okay, so we are on the iRacing.com.
So you go to Texas Motor Speedway here, go to test car on the track, and whatever setup is in it from the previous track, you actually have to go change it, kind of like a real race car.
Now, did the TV screens and did all this come with it?
Yeah, so it comes together as a full package. It's ready to go. So brought it into the house, weighs 750 pounds, and just had to. It has casters that you just kind of just pull them up, and then it sits stationary, and then you pull the two monitors out from the side, and then you got your one middle monitor. So it's three 42-inch monitors. So
And can you adjust all the pedals the way that you like them, so it's pretty similar to your car?
yeah, so they built it more NASCAR specific. So the brake pedal is really stiff, which is different compared to like a sports car or something like that. So it's very similar to the real car, and then you can adjust the pedals and steering, to driver comfort.
So do they have like a sports car, like an open wheel style one that they can make too, or that all just NASCAR style?
No, they have a different style to adjust the pedals. The stiffness of the brake pedal is the biggest change.
There's our cuckoo clock again. So what time would it be here locally? So now it's 8 o'clock? Yeah. And it came with the laptop, or not the laptop, the keyboard? Perfect.
That's right. Yeah, so it all comes together. It has surround sound, and then obviously it has two actuators on the back of the seat that, move to give you that, loose, tight banking feel. Mm-hmm. And then the steering wheel has like a vibration and a stiffness in it, which is called force feedback, to give you an idea of, one, you feel the bumps, and then you can really feel if the front end starts sliding.
So it's very accurate. So if there's a bump on the racetrack, it's going to be at the exact same spot on the racetrack as you're running around it right now, right?
That's right. Yeah. So that's why I find it so beneficial. Going to these new racetracks, you hear drivers that are like, there's a big bump getting into one. What's it feel like? So on here, you get an idea of where that is, turning off the wall, getting into the corner, which is always, beneficial. So you don't go out there and hit it at 150, 170 mile an hour your first lap.
That makes a lot of sense. All right. So what is the? Oh, okay. So no, it's fine. It's fine. We can hear it. Right there. So we got surround sound. Okay. So you start at the end of pit road, into first gear. It's got an actual shifter. You said that's in an H pattern, right?
Yeah. Fanatec H pattern shifter. You actually have to push down and go over to first gear to actually hit reverse like a real race car. So that's always nice. You get that really normal feel for what your cockpit is in a real race car. And then all the gauges on iRacing are the same as what I have on every weekend.
All right, so going into 3 and 4 right now. Now, what is the what is the thing that you try to focus on the most being at Texas?
Yeah, the thing about Texas is I feel turn 3 and 4 are the most important. With if you can get the handling there, you can really get down the front stretch nice and quick, because turn 1 and 2 has more banking, and that's kind of consistent. It's the same thing every lap, whereas all your speed is going to be gained or lost in turns 3 and 4.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we'll let you race here for a second, get up to speed. Do you have anything to add, David?
So my experience with the simulator was pretty intense. Like, once you get over like your goofy smile, you can actually like hone in pretty hard, and like things you don't realize, like when you're playing like with a PlayStation, where the pedal doesn't have any feedback to it, and the brake pedal isn't nearly as stiff, or when you loop it like that, like you pretty much know exactly the moment you've screwed up and that you're not coming back from it. Like, it's incredibly weird. It's real.
Okay, now here's the best part when it comes to a simulator. He just spun out, and now he's just going to press a button, and voila, he has a brand new car. And he can do it again, but not repeat what you just did. And tell me what just happened.
Yeah, so just off of turn 2 at Texas, it gets really tight. There's only so much you can do. So you try and roll out of the throttle and take it easy. Let the front end set again so you can get around the corner. And that time, just mowed the wall down with the right front. But it's cheap to hit the reset button here.
Yeah, because you found the edge.
That's right. Yeah. We'll go do it better this time.
Do you have anything, Emmett?
I would just have him describe a lap as he's going around. Have him describe the speedway for us, and what he's thinking as he's just talk us through a lap here at Texas. That would be an excellent.
All right, so we'll wait till you start the start finish line here. Oh.
Yeah, coming off pit road, obviously you got to stay behind or stay under the line and blend up at the blend line off of turn 2. So down there it's really bumpy. You got to try and get up to speed as quick as you can, but you also got to worry about spinning out on the apron. It happens from time to time. If you're at the racetrack, you see it happen. Obviously it's not on TV, but then you cruise around here, go take the green flag. You're not really up to speed just yet. Drive off into turn 1, kind of roll out of the throttle, get it pointed, and then you're back in the hammer. Harden the gas, but off turn 2, the wall comes up quick. So you want to make sure your hands are nice and straight and ready for that. And then 3 and 4 is probably an easier corner. The car handles really good there, but if you're not handling good, that's where you're going to lose most of your speed. The front stretch, you just have so much speed off of turn 4 through there, so much runoff room. That's where you can really, gain or lose time and kind of run a lap there. Looks like that was our best lap so far. And then now you have a ghost car. So with that being said, you just try and go faster this lap. So what can you do differently? Drive in deeper or get in the gas sooner. Obviously, that's where you're going to pick up speed. But on iRacing, one of the biggest thing is you do have tire fall off and fuel burn. So that affects the handling of the car. So you probably got a good shot at beating your lap for about 3 laps. And then at Texas, it's going to start falling off because on iRacing, you have the old surface. Whereas now, in real life, you have a really good new surface with new asphalt. So it's much tighter.
So you're going to get to a spot to where you physically, I mean, this is a computer simulation, but you're not going to be able to catch your ghost car. So you're just trying to keep up with it the best that you can.
Yeah, that's the thing. On iRacing, it's pretty realistic. So just like when you see, some of these top teams, even in Xfinity, they go out there and they lay their best lap down of practice, lap 1 or 2, and then tire fall-off comes into play, and then track temperature heats up. So you just can't lay down the lap that you want to. And that's why you see some of these teams like Joe Gibbs or RCR and Xfinity, they really pride themselves on being the first one on the racetrack. Because normally, whoever the first one is on the racetrack will have the best lap time of that practice session.
I think he pretty much just walked us through the entire process.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, it's okay. He just walked us through the entire process. I mean, that's stuff you're not going to hear from anybody else.
We're going to have him try something new here. We're having him try something new. We're gonna, since he's never raced at Bristol, we're gonna see how he does there and see how he's able to use it for the next week and getting accustomed to that racetrack.
Now, have you been running laps at Bristol already? No,
No, this is my first time at Bristol. I take it 1 week at a time and try and hit a lot of the road courses because I've never been there. So you kind of want that to become second nature. So I've been hitting Watkins Glen pretty hard with that being our first road course.
Yeah, I know. Me and my buddies, we always used to mess around with this thing. We would get in the Williams Formula One car and go at Watkins Glen and try to one-up each other. It's a pretty fun little track.
Yeah, Watkins Glen is it's a good time.
Yeah, and they have, 3 different configurations? They got the boot, the no boot, the old style that didn't even have the chicane on the backstretch.
Yeah, I think the most fun part of that racetrack is the boot. It's exciting.
Now, just to say that he was serious when he said that he hasn't been on Bristol Motor Speedway, because we are now purchasing Bristol Motor Speedway.
And paying tax.
That's right. So this is the cheapest test ever. You can buy Bristol Motor Speedway for $11.95. With North Carolina tax, you're looking at $12.79, and you can pay that with your favorite Visa card.
I wonder if they would take some Gruntstyle T-shirts in exchange next time. We'll have to try that out.
That's what I'm talking about. That would be nice. Gruntstyle T-shirts in exchange for everything.
Now, can you customize your car? Can you put like a Gruntstyle scheme on your car?
Yeah, so there's a lot of NASCAR like realistic schemes out there. So through Trade and Paints, you can download that and have all the different paint schemes.
This is interesting. This is going to be it's going to be fascinating. It's going to be interesting to see that how you do, having never seen this racetrack ever. It's such a unique racetrack. It's the world's fastest half mile, and it's certainly a fan favorite. So we're actually doing you some good by forcing you to try it early here, I think.
Now, I do know that whole fastest half-mile track, I know that Winchester has a sign that says that they are. I know Salem's up in there. It's kind of disputed, but I know for Bristol's got to be the fastest.
Yeah, I'd say Bristol's the fastest. There's so many tracks, I've never actually ran Winchester, and I've really wanted to run an ARCA race there. It's crazy. I hear there's a lot of fans out there, and tire fall-off is huge at that track. You see them lap all the way up to, second, third, fourth place.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So my question is, what is the world's fastest quarter-mile racetrack? Who knows the answer to that one?
Well, we'll see. David? Spencer?
Wisconsin.
Slinger.
Absolutely.
Slinger. All right, so now here we go. His very first laps right here on the Young and Pruitt podcast.
This is going to be interesting. So yeah, you're right. It's really hard to see.
Yeah, so you're almost looking into turn 1 and 2 or to turn 3 and 4 as you're going around, because if something was to happen in front of you, you're going to be there in a hurry.
Yeah, I'd say a spotter is super important here, almost like a speedway race. They really have to be looking out front.
Yeah, and I've always heard of the legend guys always telling the young rookies, they say that the main thing about Bristol is remember to breathe.
Yeah, I'm doing that right now.
I know you guys can't see this, but you might be able to hear it. But this thing is really working around. It's got 2 shocks built into the back side of the seat that shift it forward, backward, side to side. It gets a lot of movement. I don't know if it really moves up and down too much, but he's definitely getting feedback.
Yeah, for sure. The car's getting tight as you run. But, we're down to a 15.7, so I'm not sure if that's a good lap time here or not.
So now he's going to pull off into the pits?
I'm going to have to jump in on this one. This one looks super intense.
I think you guys are going to have to try this out. It's pretty fun.
Well, I'm not. I'm currently on the shelf. This seat's moving around way too much for me right now.
David Pruitt now stepping into the seat. replacing Spencer Boyd as the driver.
Up over the shifter.
Follow that as things that'll never happen. Dedication.
All right, Spencer, we'll let you talk him through this.
There you go. Well, now that I did my first laps at Bristol Motor Speedway, just bang through those gears nice and easy, get up to speed. And you would think Bristol, every corner is identical, but I was getting tighter in turns 1 and 2 than I was 3 and 4. So not sure what that's all about. Definitely got to use a little brake here, keep it out of the fence. Yeah, you got to use some brakes to keep the nose set.
Spencer, I have a
Wow.
question for you. I have a question for you. Can you run a race with other cars on there, not actual participants, but computer-driven competitors?
No, so you actually have to race real people. To have other cars on the racetrack, you got to have real people. But you can actually do a thing where you host your own event, and you can lock it to where only your friends have a password to join.
Right.
So you see a lot of drivers do that. You know, they'll go out there and race with the public, but if they really want to see what there is to gain and have some fun with some guys, there's some series out there that Ryan Reed, myself, Ray Black, a lot of guys get involved with and have some fun, and you know, just you can really be hard on each other there, and it's cheap to hit the reset button. So sometimes you see people get into it on a racetrack, and next thing you know, they're wrecking each other on the video game.
Yeah, and I can see that the ghost car really does do everything that you just did. Like, his ghost car is still hitting the wall at the exact same places that David has hit the wall. So what do you think about going around Bristol?
There's no way I could do this for 500 laps. Like, I'm already like worn out now, and like I'm not hot. I'm not wearing a fire suit. I haven't been doing dog and pony show all morning.
Yeah, you barely have shoes on. What kind of shoes are those?
Well, these are actually Cole Haan driving moccasins. As you can see, they've helped me zero.
I don't know. You're pretty quick. You're down to a 15.391. I don't know if it's...
That's with the wall.
How important is that right rear going to be here? Because I'm just wearing this wall down. They're going to call this the Pruitt stripe.
Yeah, they're definitely going to have to repaint it before the Cup race.
Well, yeah, the right front suspension is ruined on this car, but you can hit that reset button and get a new car and some fresh stickers. Go out there and try to lay down another lap.
We're gonna do that. So we got 15.3 absolutely destroying this thing.
I think the middle's quicker. My 5 laps.
It's still shaking.
I was down there on the bottom.
That was a mercy shake. Okay, so we got fresh tires here, and we are in neutral. Okay, so here we go. Spencer said we're gonna try to run the middle here, so we're gonna do that. If I can figure out how to do that, I can tell you how to wear out the wall. All right, we're hammering down here.
Dropping the hammer, Harry.
So I think I rotated pretty decent through there. I'm not sure if I'm sticking enough wheel in this thing or if I'm just driving in way too hard. I'm surprised I didn't spin it right there.
Driving in way too hard.
Yeah, you back up the corner a little bit there.
Do they have Twitch for iRacing?
Yeah, so I'm actually looking into doing my own Twitch channel.
Really?
Through iRacing, yeah.
And for those that don't know, it's basically a social media platform to where you can watch people play video games. And for whatever the reason, it's exploded over the past couple months.
I would say I don't have time for all that, but I play a lot of iRacing.
Yeah, you could hook up a camera right here or a camera right there. Have a face camera.
We got our first crash of the day here.
Emmett wants to go.
All right, Emmett's jumping in.
Emmett wants to go. Tennessee native Emmett Bryd.
So, do we do a shot every time he hits the wall, or?
Ooh. Oh, hey, you can do the post-race interview with David here real quick.
Oh, hey, David. Quick question, man. You look like you had a blast out there. Car handled pretty good. First time at Bristol Motor Speedway. But I want to know how to feel to you.
Well, I'd just like to first thank my sponsor, Bondo, who I've just bought a lot of product from to replace my destroyed race car. I'm worn out, and I'm looking forward to watch Emmett get worn out if he ever decides to get into fourth gear, which he is not in, and still not in, and is just
really rolling the
worse
center.
than I did. So, overall, it was a good short day for us. I'm ready to go home and put some nice lavender lotion on, and maybe listen to some Sarah McLachlan.
Leave it to the marketing guy to thank his sponsor instantly.
Instantly. It was a bad day, but I got to thank. Yeah, so looks like you had a good time out there. 5-star. They make the Xfinity Series bodies, so we'll be taking the car over there real soon.
Well, they'll be clicking those new Zeus clips in any second now.
All right, so now we're going to go to the SimGear in-car and see if we can talk to Emmett while he's running around Bristol Motor Speedway here.
I'm trying to use less brake and roll it in, but it's really not working very well for me.
One thing I noticed about Emmett is he right foot drives. This is a unique racing experience.
Yeah, that whole heel toe thing doesn't work so well for me. I can.
Off the gas, on the brake. Off the brake, on the gas.
Just getting into the rhythm here would be nice. That's something I didn't quite figure.
Oh, crossed up.
I like the rolling it off better than I do the heavy braking.
Yeah, there you go. Shoot, there's fourth.
Yeah, I think there's, from what I've heard from guys, there's different driving styles at Bristol. There's the guys that...
Not a good one here.
There's the guys that drive in hard and use some brake, and there's the guys that back off early, and, you just find what works for you and what's good for your car. And, used to you had to... Gordon did the whole diamond deal at Bristol, and like Josh said, there's so many changes that have happened at Bristol Motor Speedway over the years to where used to the bottom was where you're at, and the top came in, and now it seems like the middle is pretty fast.
Yeah, and that's one place that the track really is trying to change the track. What they did, the progressive banking, they did the sticky stuff last year.
It used to be asphalt. The whole track used to be asphalt, and then they could run too wide around there all night long. And unfortunately, because of the physics of the cars and the G-forces, they can't do that. It just tears up the asphalt. But when it was asphalt, a lot like Dover used to be asphalt, it was great to watch because you just see tire smoke boiling off those cars all night long. I'm giving it up because I'm no good at this.
If it's jumping out of the car while it's moving.
I'm giving up.
So we got our hired driver of the night, Josh, my PR guy. He's
Yeah, Josh, go ahead and say hello.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Do a 15.391. That's all you got to be.
Spencer wore me out at GoPro last night.
Say that again.
Yeah, so Spencer and I went to GoPro Motorplex, did some karting last night.
Spencer wore me out last night.
No, not that one at all.
Oh, tell me more.
What's that one?
Tell me more. Need more detail.
Well, last night Josh and I went to GoPro Motorplex, and I believe I have the fast time of the week. And Josh, how'd you do?
Not as fast, but it's okay. We're learning.
Josh is he's learning. We're making a race car driver out of Josh, but he does a great job on Twitter and Instagram, and catching those really cool moments at the racetrack.
So what do you think so far?
It's definitely challenging. I've actually driven my street car out here before. I have family in Abington, Virginia, and Bristol, Tennessee, so I've grown up going to Bristol, and it's pretty surreal. The banking is ridiculous. You get on the track, and you can't even see the first 5 rows of the grandstands when you look out the right side of the car. So they call it the last great Coliseum, and that's definitely what it is like when you're there.
Spencer, now, are you always this crossed up when you're going around Bristol?
I believe we're overdriving the corner here. We got about 2 hands full of the wheel right now. So if Josh backs up the corner, he might find a little more speed. The fastest lap of the night is by David up in the fence.
Maybe I should run the David line.
You should run the David line.
I think that term is the outside line.
Well, it's the Larson line, except for Larson.
This is the Larson line right here.
Yep, he doesn't do that.
When Larson's in victory lane, I'm pretty sure all the fenders are on it, boys.
Yeah, well, I'm parked in the garage right now, so that tells you the whole story.
Let's get some stickers here.
The fastest lap by David in a fence may be the fastest lap, but after 500 miles, might be a rough day.
50 laps would be a prayer and a joy for me. So,
All right. Well, this seems like, this is an awesome setup. And, I would put it next to like a bodybuilder having a gym in their house. Like this is, you can really get your reps in this thing. It's a amazing setup. The whole thing is really nice. It's got speakers all around it. Like you said, it has the three 42-inch HD TVs that span, literally the whole room that we're in. I guess this would be where the dining room would be.
Yeah, so I took over the dining room with the SimGear simulator. It was 750 pounds, so I couldn't take it upstairs.
Let's see his best attempt here for Josh.
That really helps on corner exit.
Gotta anticipate it.
Yeah. Sticking the corner, I think, is the...
Looks a lot like pole vaulting.
Yeah, a lot like it.
That bounce off the wall, though, man. He gets that extra 5 or 10 car lengths after he bounces off the wall there. So I don't know if you want to try that in real life, though. I think Carl Edwards tried to pull that move once, if I'm correct, on Jimmy Johnson a couple of years ago. And
yeah, that was at Kansas. And
Tried to video gate him.
yeah, he actually said that it didn't work the same as he thought it was going to. So there is limitations to the simulator.
Definitely limitations, but it's all in good fun.
So we'll see if he can lay down a lap
I don't think
here.
we can beat the bounce off lap here, boys. I think you need to try this thing.
No, I can't. This thing's moving way...
Where's dinner?
This thing's moving around way too much for me. So you say that you're very active on Twitter. What is your Twitter handle? What is your Instagram handle? Go ahead and tell us all your social media stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I love Twitter. Hit me up at Spencer Boyd. Pretty simple there. And then on Instagram, it's at Spencer Boyd PR. So love to interact with fans, send photos of my hauler going up and down the road. That's always exciting. Sponsor loves that. So tag at Gruntstyle. If you see the hauler going up and down, it's headed to Texas now. Mm-hmm. So cruising a lot of miles this week.
Mm-hmm. And then be sure to follow us at Young and Pruitt on Twitter and Instagram. You can find me at JackmanZach on Twitter and Instagram.
You can find me at Tall Guy Turbo on Twitter and Instagram.
And hope you guys enjoyed this. I know you guys couldn't see it, but hopefully you enjoyed listening to it. And for Spencer Boyd, Emmett, Bryd, we are out of here.
See ya.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys.